Ideally, NBA fans should easily be able to construct catchphrases that could define each top MVP contender's cases this season. For instance, in the case of Nikola Jokic, it's convenient to label him as the best offensive player on the planet, who can dissect any kind of defensive coverage for him to leverage his playmaking at a historic level. Then in the case of Victor Wembanyama, he's easily identifiable as the ultimate two-way force, who at 7'4" is able to warp the floor on both ends in a way no other player could. But then, what about the reigning MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Well, just like for most, I personally find building a one-line catchphrase for him extremely difficult because of all the different things Shai does on the court. Well, some people might interpret this as blasphemy, but at the end of the day, when you combine SGA's blend of dominant interior scoring with his high-level defensive ability for a guard, as well as the level of winning he's accomplished so far in his NBA career, I think it's safe to say that Shai is actually the closest player to Michael Jordan that the NBA has seen in years. And it's not like this is just based on narrative alone, because both the eye test and more importantly, the data actually backs this claim up. In the history of the NBA, there have only been a total of 21 instances when a player has averaged at least 30 points per game on at least 60% true shooting, with their team winning at least 60% of their games for that season. Notably, of those 21 instances, only Michael Jordan, James Harden, and SGA have been able to accomplish that at least 3 times. But among those 3 players, only Shai and James Harden have been able to meet those thresholds for 3 straight years, with Shai actually having done it the past 3 seasons. But to more closely resemble what Shai is doing this 2026, let's further increase the threshold to instances when a player averaged at least 30 points on at least 65% true shooting while winning at least 70% of their team's games for that particular season. And you'll find that the list narrows down to just 2 seasons, that of 2026 Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and that of 2016 Steph Curry. This is the kind of season that Shai Gilgeous-Alexanders have had. This is not just elite volume scoring that was witnessed from him this year, but we're also seeing one of the most efficient high-scoring seasons that a guard has ever put up in NBA history. But to paint a better picture of the kind of dominance that Shai's displayed, let's apply a more advanced metric to measure his efficiency, which is the relative true shooting metric, which measures a player's true shooting percentage compared to the league average for that specific season. And looking at it using that category, among all 30-plus point per game seasons ever by a guard, Shai's current 2026 season ranks 3rd all-time, only behind Steph Curry's 2016 and 2021 seasons, while even being ahead of Michael Jordan's 1989 and 1991 seasons. Well, for sure, there are a ton of debates as to who among Steph Curry and SGA actually resembles Michael Jordan's scoring dominance much closer, and obviously, the shot profile is what separates the 2 guards. In 2016, Steph Curry posted unreal efficiency from deep, shooting 45% from behind the arc and a high volume of 11 attempts per game. Meanwhile, this season, Shai has been otherworldly from inside the arc, as he shot 60%. I repeat, 60% from 2-point range on 15 attempts per game. This is not the kind of efficiency that you would expect from a 6'6" guard who loves to take his game close to the basket. And again, Shai is doing this at a historic level. Looking at it, there have only been 12 times in history when a player has converted at least 60% of his 2-point shot attempts on at least 15 shots per game. Aside from Shai's current 2026 season, the 11 other seasons when that's been accomplished all belong to either big forwards like Giannis and Chuck or legendary big men like Shaq and Kareem. All in all, Shai is just a different kind of outlier in terms of scoring profile. Guards are not supposed to drive as much as he does or operate from the mid-range with that kind of volume he displays and still score efficiently in the end. When Shai drives, teams know what's coming, but the combination of his handle, his footwork, his syncopated pace, his unreal understanding of angles together with those super long arms just makes him impossible to stop. For context, this season, among all 31 players to log at least 750 drives, Shai's 1.22 points per game is the most efficient mark in the entire league. And the crazy thing is, Shai's done this with him seeing at least one help defender on 75.3% of his drives, which is a rate that's 3.4% more than the league average. In addition, among all 33 players to have attempted at least 150 mid-range shots this season, Shai's 54.9% clip once again leads the entire NBA. And he's done that on 355 attempts, which is the 5th most from the mid-range. The 4 other players who have more attempts than him in DeRozan, KD, Brandon Ingram, and Jaylen Brown don't really come close in terms of efficiency. But again, look at it from a historical perspective and you'll see that Shai's current mid-range efficiency even surpasses that of Michael Jordan's during his 97 and 98 seasons, which were the two highest volume mid-range shooting seasons of his entire career. That is, despite the fact that Jordan simply just had 3 times more mid-range attempts compared to Shai in any of those seasons. The point is, when guarding Shai, defenses now have to pick their poison. He gets to the rim and finishes at a high clip, the mid-range scoring is also elite, and if that wasn't enough, Shai's pull-up three-pointer, which in past years used to be a bailout shot for him, is now more of a real punishment for defenses who spend the entire possession trying to deny him access to the lane, as Shai has also drained a career-high 38% of his off-the-dribble three-pointers this season. SGA has just become a complete scorer, and that's how he's been able to put up at least 20 points in 140 consecutive regular season games, an achievement that broke Wilt Chamberlain's 63-year record. And for context, the last time Shai scored under 20 points in an NBA game, Cooper Flagg wasn't even playing at Duke yet. That's how long Shai's maintained this kind of scoring consistency. More so, his scoring consistency has just further enhanced Shai's playmaking, which in turn has definitely influenced how teams work to guard him. Well, teams have always gone great lengths by defending in the box against Shai's drives, but notably, this strategy ramps up even higher against top-tier teams. In this possession against Boston, you can see Shai using Chet's ball screen to attack Derek White. Just watch Shai's gravity force all 5 Celtics in a box with almost no regard whatsoever for Wallace, Caruso, and Chet, who are all left open from behind the arc. Ultimately, Shai chooses the easiest pass to the corner, setting up Case and Wallace for the wide open shot. This time against Denver, Shai uses the J-Will screen to get the switch against Aaron Gordon, and as Shai drives, everything is in chaos. Brown meets him at the free throw line, Gordon is hovering over Shai's left side, Jamal Murray is closing in on the right elbow, Cam Johnson is helped all the way off the corner, while Jokic is left alone on the other side to contain both J-Will and Lou Dort. Meanwhile, SGA plays it smartly as he takes a couple more dribbles in space before whipping the overhead pass to Dort on the wing for the wide open three-pointer. This season, Shai has drawn at least a second defender on almost 21% of his touches, which is the 5th highest mark in the league among all players with at least 2,000 touches, and it simply hasn't mattered, as the Thunder have generated 1.23 points per possession when Shai has drawn at least one help defender. And notably, the 4 other players who have matched or exceeded Shai's number of touches in Luka, Cade Cunningham, Jaylen Brown, and Danny Avdija haven't produced that kind of efficiency when drawing a help defender. This is because Shai's ability to process all kinds of different coverages has just grown and developed to a level it's never been before. Load up against Shai in isolation, and he'll just manipulate that help to generate open looks for teammates. Ramp up your aggression when guarding him in ball screen actions, and he'll just make slip passes to his roll man or to the wing, or he'll simply reject the screen altogether and just go downhill. And when Shai drives, dump-off passes and corner threes are unlocked for his teammates, and even if they don't, Shai can just hold his own and shoot a pull-up jumper. Also, come to think of it, Shai averaging 31 points and 60% shooting from 2-point range, 38% shooting from deep, and 88% shooting from the foul line shouldn't even be happening, considering how much of this damage has been done through only 3 quarters, as Shai has sat out a total of 26 fourth quarters this season. And by the way, despite that, Shai has still played 393 more minutes than Victor Wembanyama. But whenever Shai's been needed by the Thunder during the fourth quarter or overtime, Shai's been sensational, and has even built an unbreakable case for the Clutch Player of the Year award with the numbers he's put up. Looking at it, Shai's 175 total points scored in the clutch this season leads the entire NBA. He's also recorded a league-best 22 baskets to tie or take the lead in clutch situations, with OKC having a 20-7 record in those clutch games, and with the Thunder outscoring opponents by a league-best 93 points in the 125 clutch minutes that SGA's played. Those stats become even more glaring when you realize what Shai's faced in the clutch. Teams have sent a help defender on Shai on 17% of all his pick and rolls during clutch time, which is the 4th highest mark in the entire league. But despite that, Shai has still joined Nikola Jokic and Cade Cunningham as the only players this season to have at least 100 clutch points, 20 clutch assists, and less than 10 clutch turnovers. But among the 3, Shai has been the most efficient in terms of field goal percentage while also having the highest win percentage in clutch games. But then, the fact that Shai's also been able to take care of the ball despite the huge offensive workload and despite the ramping up of defensive attention against him is another one of his elite features. Among all 36 players who have put up a usage rate above 25% this season, Shai's 6.9 turnover percentage is actually the lowest and 0.5% lower than that of Kawhi Leonard, who's been the second least turnover-prone player. Overall, Shai has averaged just 2.2 turnovers per game this year, and again from a historical perspective, among all 30-plus point per game seasons for a guard, that ranks as the fewest turnovers per game, ahead of his own 2024 and 2025 seasons and Michael Jordan's 96 and 91 seasons. Now, some people discredit how good Shai's been, given how this current OKC Thunder team has also been historically great, but then come to think of it, 8 of Shai's rotation teammates have actually missed a substantial number of games this season. Notably, Shai's all-star running mate J-Dub has missed 49 games, starting center I Hart has missed 35 games, Alex Caruso missed 26, AJ Mitchell missed 25, and the team's third all-star Chet Holmgren has missed 13 games as well. That is not supposed to be a recipe for a 64-win team, and yet this is when you can see how the presence of Shai really matters. When Shai is on the bench, the Thunder's offensive rating would only place them 26th in the entire NBA, but when Shai steps on the floor, OKC hands down produces the best offensive rating in the entire NBA. When Shai's not on the floor, the Thunder are still a really good team with a plus 6.7 net rating, but they simply enter a whole nother level at plus 16.5 when Shai's on the court. But the offense is only one part of that, because Shai also gets things done on the defensive end. Well, if there's one parallel between Shai and Steph Curry, it is that teams try to somehow target them defensively, as they're often considered to be the only sub-elite options on the floor for their teams. But then, this is contradictory to what the play type advanced metrics suggest. Among all 102 players this season to have defended at least 500 pick and rolls as the screen defender, Shai's .82 points per possession allowed is the second best, only behind Azar Thompson. Plus, among all 69 players to defend at least 400 drives this season, Shai's .94 points per possession allowed also ranks 11th best, in a tie with elite guard defender Dyson Daniels. Well, sure, some other metrics such as Shai's isolation and closeout defense paint him closer to just an average or league average defender, but watching him, you'll see that SGA is not just a cog in OKC's elite defensive system, but someone who definitely adds value to it. Even though he's usually deployed by Coach Daignault onto weaker offensive links for him to have some very limited breathers, Shai has still used that time to deploy his length and instincts to produce the 22nd most steals per game and the 40th most deflections per game this season. In addition, Shai also utilizes that blend of length and awareness to act as a secondary rim protector for the Thunder. After opponents converted 64% of their shots at the rim when defended by Shai last season, that mark has now improved to just 58.8%, a mark that would put Shai right between Derek White and Azar Thompson in terms of defense at the rim. Bigger forwards and even some centers try to take advantage of Shai by posting him up when in cross matches, but they haven't been able to just push Shai around because Shai has consistently developed a knack for just deflecting or outright stealing entry passes. Overall, it's safe to say that the Thunder didn't have the top defense in the NBA in spite of them having Shai, as is the case for most teams with high-usage lead ball handlers. Instead, the Thunder had the best defense because their lead ball handler has refused to take defensive possessions off. Obviously, this video is not meant to be an MVP debate, but if you belong to the crowd who believes that MVPs must provide value on both ends, then this just shows you that SGA definitely crosses that threshold. Well, I know, Shai's only won one MVP so far and has only led his team to one NBA championship, which makes his career accolade still far from that of the great Michael Jordan. But I bet you can't name another modern-day guard who, just like Jordan, shows this kind of efficiency despite having this much offensive workload, who still manages to play hard on defense, and who also, time and time again, shows up in the clutch for his team, all of which eventually leads to winning at the highest level. Thank you guys if you actually made it this far into the video, but does Shai Gilgeous-Alexander actually have the potential to be one of the greatest of all time? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this has been Real Balls, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.